On the evening of 8th July 1914, in the upstairs writing room of Marble House in Newport, Alva Belmont sat at a small ormolu desk, gloved hand poised over thick cream stationery. Outside, the Atlantic wind rattles awnings. Inside, gas sconces blur against gilded paneling as maids adjust flowers for her conference of great women's suffrage gathering in the Chinese tea house the next morning. A souvenir plate made for the event, dated July 8th, 9th, 1914, will later record only a slogan and a date, not the calculation behind every carefully worded invitation. She pauses before signing her name, rereading a line that seems polite, but is in fact a test of loyalty. This, too, is a lesson her daughter and granddaughters will inherit. How a woman's handwriting can carry both grace and power. The pen scratches softly, the room smells of beeswax and roses, and the last Vanderbilt letters of the Gilded Age begin to turn from ornament into strategy. The cost of that refinement will be paid in other rooms, by other women, long after the ink has dried. On 4 September 1925, in a Manhattan townhouse off East 72nd Street, railroad heir Reginald Claypool Vanderbilt died of cirrhosis at 45, leaving behind debts, scattered racehorses, and an 18-month-old daughter, Gloria Laura Vanderbilt. In a nearby nursery, a nurse folds the child's nightgown while a lawyer's letter is read downstairs. The document, later summarized in probate records, confirms that the baby and her half-sister each inherit half of a $5 million trust. The trust is airtight. Income for her Swiss-born mother, Gloria Morgan Vanderbilt, but control for court-appointed guardians until the girl comes of age. A christening photograph from 1924, captioned simply, Gloria Laura, daughter of Reginald C. Vanderbilt, shows the infant swaddled in lace, her mother's gloved hand supporting her head. The child's future is already written in ledgers and legal stationery. Her first identity is not as daughter, but as heiress. Before she can write her own name, other people's letters will decide who is allowed to hold her. By spring 1930, in a hotel suite off the Avenue de l'Opéra in Paris, the small girl the papers call Little Gloria sits at a desk too tall for her, copying lines onto monogrammed paper. Her mother, Gloria Morgan, is often out late. The day-to-day teaching falls to the Irish nanny Emma Sullivan Kieslick, whom the child calls Dodo. Later accounts describe Dodo dictating letters to the child, notes to her grandmother in New York, reports about her fears, complaints about her mother's absences. In adulthood, Gloria would recall her mother as a beautiful stranger and understand that many of the phrases she sent across the Atlantic were not her own. Society gossip columns mention the young widow Vanderbilt seen on liners between New York and Cherbourg. Expenses for these crossings are justified in trustee correspondence as necessary for the child's welfare. On paper, every journey is written as motherhood. In practice, the child's sense of safety is tied less to her mother than to the woman who helps her hold the pen steady. The next letters with her name on them will not be written by a nurse, but by lawyers. On 1st October 1934, in a packed New York courtroom near Foley Square, 10-year-old Gloria took the stand in the custody case Whitney v. Vanderbilt, quickly dubbed the trial of the century. Outside, flashbulbs crackle. Inside, the air smells of cigar smoke and wet wool. Judge John F. Carew clears the room several times so the girl can speak without the crowd. Witnesses describe parties, late-night cocktails, and a controversial friendship between Gloria Morgan and the Marchioness of Milford Haven. A French maid's testimony of kissing like lovers makes headlines. In the judge's chambers, according to later memoirs, the child whispers that she is afraid of her mother. Years later, in The Rainbow Comes and Goes, she will write that these words had been rehearsed with her aunt's attorneys, part of a script designed to secure both her person and the income attached to her name. A front-page photograph in 1935 shows her leaving court, gloved hand held by a relative, eyes downcast, captioned, "Poor little rich girl." The phrase becomes a brand, a shorthand for a child whose life has been translated into testimony. When the courtroom doors close, her education in how to perform that brand quietly begins. On a cold morning in January 1937, at Old Westbury, Long Island, the estate of sculptor Gertrude Vanderbilt Whitney, young Gloria sits at a wide table, copying thank you notes under the watchful eye of a governess. The Whitney house offered a curated environment, art on the walls, writing lessons outside, and strict expectations of poise for the girl whose trust fund now partially supports the household. School records list a succession of private schools, the Greenvale School, then others to come. Each day begins with posture corrections, elocution practice, and the ritual of correspondence. Her handwriting, round and careful, is graded like any other subject. In letters preserved by biographers, Gloria writes of feeling watched yet alone, cherished yet used as leverage between adults. She will later say of this period that she felt cared for but not loved, a distinction that echoes across many accounts of emotionally distant upper-class childhoods. The next classrooms will formalize what this house has already begun, the making of a perfectly finished young lady. By October 1940, at Greenvale School in Long Island, and soon at Miss Porter's School in Farmington, Connecticut, Gloria stepped into institutions designed for girls of her background. Miss Porter's, founded in 1843 by Sarah Porter, began as a kind of finishing school, blending Latin and chemistry with writing, music, and strict social training. Morning classes bring geography and French. Afternoons mean piano, art, and carefully supervised walks. In dormitory rooms overlooking the Farmington River, girls practice their signatures on embossed stationery, rehearsing invitations and formal replies. The scratch of pen on paper, the starch of shirtwaists, the smell of floor wax and chalk dust, all are part of the sensory landscape of their formation. Gloria's later friendships with fellow students like Carol Grace and Una O'Neill suggest how these schools doubled as social training grounds and informal matchmaking circuits. Outside these safe campuses, the skills she has learned will be measured not in grades, but in alliances. In late 1941, under chandeliers in a Manhattan ballroom near Park Avenue, Gloria made her society debut. Society pages note her appearance in white, and magazines soon after feature her as a young model in Harper's Bazaar. Behind the published photographs lies the same ritual: signing invitations, composing short notes to chaperones, writing polite replies to dance partners. The social season is a choreography of paper, calling cards delivered, engraved menus studied, dance cards filled, and carefully kept. In interviews decades later, Gloria will describe this period as the beginning of a lifelong performance. "I was becoming what they wanted," she wrote, "and losing what I was." The training in self-presentation that began in school now moves to a larger stage, where a misstep can carry newspaper consequences. When she next signs her name in public, it will be on a marriage license far from her aunt's control. On 28 December 1941, in a California ceremony near Beverly Hills, 17-year-old Gloria married Hollywood agent Pat DiCicco. Photographs from the day show her in a long-sleeved gown by Howard Greer, the train spilling behind her. The society write-ups mention pearls, not the fact that this marriage will cause her patron aunt to disinherit her. The license she signs is another kind of document, transferring legal authority from guardian to husband. Later, she will describe DiCicco as physically abusive, a man who called her Fatsy Rue and, in her words, banged my head against the wall. The elegant pen strokes on the certificate conceal the violence to come. What she has learned, charm, conversation, the ability to write gracious notes, helps her survive in public, but cannot protect her in private. Within 4 years, she will pick up the pen again, signing papers that end this marriage and open the door to another alliance. By April 1945, in New York, Gloria was newly divorced and almost immediately remarried to famed conductor Leopold Stokowski, 42 years her senior. Within weeks of her first divorce, she signs another set of documents in a civil office and a church, stepping into a life of European tours and musical prestige. Around the same time, she reaches the majority and gains control of her trust. Lawyers' letters from this period track investment decisions and allowances. The handwriting is no longer her aunt's but her own. 2 sons, Leopold Stanislaus and Christopher, were born in 1950 and 1952. Family snapshots show her writing at a table while children play nearby, a modern echo of the old Westbury lessons. Yet even in this apparently secure domestic scene, the pattern persists. Marriage as alliance, letters as currency, the self-negotiated in contracts. Her next marriage will bring her not just a new husband, but a collaborator in reimagining what family might mean. On 28 August 1956, in upstate New York, Gloria married director Sidney Lumet. Newly released home movie footage shows her in an ivory 1830s linen gown, orchids in her hair, spinning with joy before a two-tiered cake. This third marriage joins not old railroad money to European titles, but an American heiress to one of the era's most respected filmmakers. Invitations, telegrams, and studio memos from this time show her moving comfortably between society pages and Broadway call sheets. She studies acting, appears on stage and television, writes notes in the margins of scripts. The pen that once traced "thank you" across thick cards now annotates roles and blocking. Yet in 1963, she will again sign divorce papers, and then, on Christmas Eve, write her name at the bottom of a fourth marriage certificate. On 24 December 1963 in Manhattan, Gloria married writer Wyatt Emery Cooper. There is no grand palace this time, no dukedom in the balance. Cooper, raised in poverty in Mississippi, brings a different script to the Vanderbilt story. In his 1975 memoir, Families, a Memoir and a Celebration, he writes, "It is in the family that we learn almost all we ever know of loving." Their two sons, Carter and Anderson, arrive in New York where the old Fifth Avenue mansions are being torn down or turned into museums. In a well-known 1972 family portrait, Gloria sits with her boys and Wyatt in their apartment. Her hands rest lightly on a notebook, as if interrupted mid-sentence. Home movies show her writing in sketchbooks, combining words and images. That experiment will be tested by sudden loss and by the very money that once seemed to guarantee safety. On 5th of January 1978, Wyatt Cooper died during open-heart surgery in New York, leaving Gloria a widow at 53 with two teenage sons. A decade later, on 22 July 1988, their elder son Carter dies by suicide, leaping from the balcony of their 14th floor apartment as Gloria watches helplessly. In the HBO documentary Nothing Left Unsaid, she and Anderson revisit footage, photographs, and letters from this period, trying to make sense of grief that no amount of money could mitigate. Through the 1970s and 80s, her fashion empire created a new fortune, estimated at $100 million in annual sales, even as tax troubles and mismanagement forced her to sell properties and artworks. As her business signature circulates on millions of garments, another Vanderbilt prepares to rewrite what the family name will mean. In 1976, in a New York design studio near 7th Avenue, Gloria sits with executives from the Murjani Corporation as they propose putting her actual script, Gloria Vanderbilt, in gold across the back of a new cut of jeans. When the first television commercial airs, 150,000 pairs reportedly sell in a single day. A Studio 54 fashion show in 1979 featured models in high-waisted stretch denim. At the same time, legal documents tell another story: lawsuits against advisors who mismanaged her funds, IRS bills that forced the sale of homes. The name on the pocket is not just ornament, it is survival. Her youngest son will look at that history and choose a different relationship to the legacy written in that looping hand. On 17 June 2019, in her apartment on Manhattan's Upper East Side, Gloria Vanderbilt died at 95. Probate documents later reveal that her estate leaves about $1.5 million to Anderson Cooper. Anderson has long said he does not expect a Vanderbilt-size inheritance. In a 2014 interview, he calls large inheritances a curse. Instead, what he receives is a different kind of legacy. The correspondence collected in their joint book, The Rainbow Comes and Goes, a late-life exchange of letters and conversations in which mother and son revisit the trial, the marriages, the suicides, the genes, and the art. In the documentary's closing images, Anderson sits at a table lit by a single lamp, turning over pages of his mother's stationery, her looping blue ink fading slightly at the edges. The camera lingers on one folded sheet, creased where it has been opened and read many times. A century after Alva Belmont weighed every word on marble house letterhead, the Vanderbilt story ends not with a mansion, but with a piece of paper, handwriting that once built alliances now resting quietly in a son's hands, an enduring trace of grace and of the constraints it never fully concealed.